What you are about to hear could fundamentally reshape American politics as we know it. Right now, at this very moment, the United States Senate has erupted into absolute chaos as members of Donald Trump's own Republican Party are openly discussing something that seemed unthinkable just weeks ago. We are talking about impeachment proceedings, not from Democrats, but from Republicans themselves. This is not a drill. This is not speculation. This is happening right now, and the implications are staggering for everyone who cares about the future of this country. If you want to stay informed about the most important political developments affecting your life, hit that subscribe button right now and turn on notifications, because you do not want to miss a single update as this story continues to unfold. Let me take you inside what is happening on Capitol Hill because the details are absolutely extraordinary. For years, the Republican Party has stood largely united behind Donald Trump. Through 2 impeachment trials, through January 6th, through countless controversies, the party maintained its loyalty. But something has fundamentally shifted. The cracks that many observers have been watching for years have finally broken wide open, and what is emerging is nothing short of a political earthquake. It started quietly, as these things often do. Closed-door meetings between senior Republican senators began taking place with increasing frequency over the past several weeks. Sources close to these discussions describe an atmosphere of profound concern, even fear, about the direction of the party and the country. Names that you would recognize, senators who have been reliable Trump allies for years, are now privately expressing doubts that they never would have voiced publicly even 6 months ago. The catalyst for this dramatic shift involves a combination of factors that have converged at exactly the wrong moment for the former president. Legal troubles that seemed manageable individually have accumulated into what one Republican strategist described as an avalanche of liability. The various criminal cases, the civil judgments, the ongoing investigations have created a situation where many in the party are questioning whether continued loyalty is politically sustainable. But here is where it gets really interesting. The discussions happening in the Senate right now are not just about political convenience. Multiple senators have reportedly expressed genuine constitutional concerns about recent actions and statements that they believe cross lines that cannot be uncrossed. We are talking about senior members of the Judiciary Committee, members of the Armed Services Committee, people with decades of experience who understand the weight of what they are contemplating. To understand the magnitude of what is happening, you need to appreciate just how unprecedented this situation truly is. In the entire history of the United States, only 3 presidents have faced impeachment proceedings. Andrew Johnson in 1868, Bill Clinton in 1998, and Donald Trump himself in 2019 and 2021. No president has ever faced serious impeachment pressure from their own party, while that party controlled chambers of Congress. What we are witnessing right now has literally never happened before in American history. The numbers tell a compelling story. Recent internal polling conducted by Republican strategists shows that Trump's approval rating among independent voters has dropped to just 31%. The lowest it has been since he left office. Among suburban voters, a demographic that proved decisive in recent elections, his approval sits at a dismal 27%. These are not numbers that win elections. These are numbers that lose elections badly, and Republican senators facing re-election in competitive states are acutely aware of this reality. But the polling goes deeper than general approval ratings. When voters are asked specifically about the legal issues surrounding the former president, the numbers become even more concerning for his political future. 54% of all voters, including 38% of Republicans, say they have significant concerns about the various criminal charges. Among voters who describe themselves as somewhat conservative rather than very conservative, that number jumps to 47% expressing serious concerns. These are the voters who decide close elections, and they are clearly troubled. Inside the Senate chamber today, the atmosphere was described by multiple witnesses as electric with tension. Senators who normally spend time chatting amiably before proceedings were huddled in small groups, speaking in hushed tones. Staff members reported an unusual number of closed-door meetings in offices throughout the building. Something is clearly happening, and the people closest to the action understand that they may be participating in a historic moment. The key figure to watch in all of this is someone whose name you might not immediately expect. While attention often focuses on the most vocal critics or the most loyal defenders, the real power in situations like this lies with those in the middle. There is a group of approximately 12 to 15 Republican senators who have maintained what observers describe as strategic silence on the question of Trump's future. These senators, representing a mix of conservative and moderate constituencies, hold the balance of power in any potential impeachment scenario. For impeachment to move forward, it would require a majority vote in the House of Representatives to bring charges, followed by a two-thirds majority in the Senate to convict. With the current composition of Congress, this would require significant Republican support in both chambers. Until recently, such support seemed impossible. Today, for the first time, multiple sources are indicating that the impossible may be becoming possible. Let me break down what would need to happen for this scenario to actually unfold. First, there would need to be a formal introduction of articles of impeachment in the House. This could theoretically be initiated by any member, but for it to have any chance of success, it would need support from House leadership. Current discussions suggest that while Speaker support remains uncertain, there is growing pressure from members in competitive districts who see continued association with Trump's legal troubles as politically toxic. Second, the House Judiciary Committee would need to hold hearings and vote to send articles to the full House. This process typically takes weeks, though it can be expedited in extraordinary circumstances. The composition of the current Judiciary Committee includes several members who have privately expressed openness to considering such action if sufficient evidence of wrongdoing is presented. Third, the full House would need to vote on the articles. A simple majority is required, meaning if every Democrat voted in favor, only a handful of Republican votes would be needed. Given the number of Republicans in competitive districts and the polling numbers we discussed earlier, these votes are more attainable than they would have been even a year ago. Finally, the Senate would conduct a trial presided over by the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, with senators serving as jurors. A two-thirds majority, currently 67 votes, would be required for conviction. This is the highest hurdle, and it is where previous impeachment efforts have failed. However, the dynamics this time are fundamentally different, because the pressure is coming from within the Republican Party itself. What makes this situation so remarkable is the source of the pressure. During Trump's previous impeachments, the effort was driven entirely by Democrats, allowing Republicans to frame it as partisan overreach. This time, the concerns are being raised by Republicans, by members of Trump's own party who have supported him through countless controversies. When Mitt Romney voted to convict during the first impeachment trial, he stood largely alone among Republicans. Today, sources suggest he might have significant company. The reasons being cited by these Republicans are varied but share common themes. Constitutional concerns top the list, with multiple senators reportedly expressing worry about the precedents being set and the long-term implications for American democracy. There are concerns about the rule of law and whether anyone, regardless of political power, can be above accountability. There are also practical political concerns about the party's ability to win future elections with Trump at the top of the ticket. One senior Republican senator, speaking on condition of anonymity, reportedly told colleagues that the party faces an existential choice. The senator is said to have argued that continuing to defend the indefensible would permanently damage the Republican brand with younger voters, suburban voters, and independent voters, constituencies that are essential for long-term political viability. This argument appears to be resonating with colleagues who are thinking about the party's future beyond the next election cycle. The response from Trump's allies has been fierce and immediate. Statements released over the past several hours have denounced what they call a betrayal by establishment Republicans. Social media accounts associated with the Trump political operation have begun targeting specific senators by name, threatening primary challenges, and accusing them of disloyalty. This pressure campaign has worked in the past, but sources suggest that some senators are no longer intimidated by these tactics. The reason for this shift in calculus comes down to simple political math. Many of the senators being targeted are either not up for re-election for several years, giving them political breathing room, or are in states where Trump's influence has diminished significantly. Additionally, several senators approaching the end of their careers appear to be thinking about their historical legacy rather than their next primary election. When you are not running again, the threat of a primary challenge loses its power. Financial considerations are also playing a role. Major Republican donors, particularly those in the business community, have been quietly expressing concerns about the party's direction for months. These donors, who provide essential funding for campaigns and political operations, are reportedly threatening to close their checkbooks if the party continues down its current path. Money may not be the only factor in politics, but it is certainly a significant one, and the donor class is clearly sending signals. International implications add another layer of complexity to this situation. Allied nations have been watching American political developments with growing concern. Diplomatic sources indicate that conversations with European allies, Asian partners, and others have increasingly touched on questions of American political stability. The impeachment discussions happening now will be closely monitored by governments around the world, each calculating what it means for their own relationship with the United States. The historical parallels to this moment are imperfect but instructive. When Richard Nixon faced the prospect of impeachment in 1974, it was ultimately Republican pressure that convinced him to resign. Senior party leaders, including Senator Barry Goldwater, visited Nixon at the White House and informed him that he had lost the support of his own party. Within days, Nixon announced his resignation. Some observers are wondering whether we might be approaching a similar inflection point, though the circumstances and personalities are obviously different. Public opinion will ultimately play a crucial role in how this situation unfolds. If voters clearly signal that they want accountability, politicians will respond to that signal. If public opinion remains divided or ambivalent, the pressure for action may dissipate. This is why the coming days and weeks will be so critical. How Americans respond to these developments, through polls, through calls to their representatives, through their engagement with the political process, will shape the outcome. Media coverage of these events will also influence public perception. The way this story is framed, the voices that are amplified, the context that is provided, all of these factors will affect how voters understand what is happening. This is why it is so important to seek out multiple sources of information and to think critically about the narratives being presented. Whatever your political views, being informed is essential to being an engaged citizen. The economic implications of prolonged political uncertainty should not be overlooked. Markets generally prefer stability and predictability, and extended impeachment proceedings would introduce significant uncertainty into the political environment. Business leaders, investors, and economic planners all factor political stability into their decisions. While the economy is influenced by many factors beyond politics, the potential for market volatility during this period is real. Looking at the legal landscape, the timing of these political developments intersects with ongoing criminal proceedings in multiple jurisdictions. The various cases working their way through the courts will continue regardless of what happens in Congress, but the political context surrounding those cases could influence everything from jury pools to prosecutorial decisions to the public's perception of the proceedings. The intersection of legal and political accountability creates a complex web of considerations. For viewers trying to understand what this all means, here is the bottom line. We are witnessing a potential fracture within the Republican Party that could have consequences for years or even decades to come. Whether this fracture leads to actual impeachment proceedings or whether it represents a temporary fissure that eventually heals remains to be seen. But the fact that we are even having this conversation, that senior Republicans are openly discussing these possibilities, represents a fundamental shift in American political dynamics. The coming weeks will be crucial. Watch for public statements from senators who have remained silent, as their positions will signal which direction the party is heading. Pay attention to polling, both public polls and any leaks from internal party surveys, because those numbers will influence political calculations. Monitor the response from the Trump political operation, because their strategy will reveal how seriously they are taking this threat. And stay engaged with the process, because citizen engagement matters more than ever during moments of political crisis. What happens next is genuinely uncertain, and anyone who tells you they know exactly how this will play out is not being honest with you. Politics is inherently unpredictable, and moments of genuine crisis are even more so. But what we can say with confidence is that we are living through a historic moment, one that future generations will study and debate. Being informed about these events as they unfold is not just interesting. It is essential for anyone who cares about the future of American democracy. The Senate remains in session as we speak, and the discussions continue behind closed doors. More information will emerge in the coming hours and days, and we will be here to bring you every important development. The story is far from over, and the most consequential chapters may still be ahead of us. This is why your engagement matters so much. If you found this breakdown helpful, if you want to stay informed as this story continues to develop, make sure you like this video and subscribe to the channel. Your subscription helps us continue providing this kind of detailed, in-depth coverage of the most important stories affecting our country. Leave a comment below with your thoughts on these developments. Do you think impeachment is actually possible? Do you think Republicans will follow through on these discussions, or will party loyalty ultimately prevail? We want to hear from you, and your comments help create a community of informed citizens engaging with these critical issues together. Share this video with others who need to understand what is happening right now in our nation's capital. The more people who are informed, the healthier our democracy will be. And make sure those notifications are turned on so you never miss an update as this historic situation continues to unfold. Thank you for watching, thank you for being engaged citizens, and we will see you in the next video with the latest developments from Capitol Hill.